my books tend to be chapter 5. That's where I start. So I have to write 4 chapters of warm-up. And I learned that I don't start until chapter 5, of course, by submitting it and getting editor comments or agent comments. But the main thing I think the storyboard can help people with is to actually find out how much warm-up you do.
All right. Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Syme.
And I'm Erick Mertz.
And this is episode 132 of the podcast. And it's October 4th, 2023, as we record this. Today, we're talking with author Mary Carroll Moore today. Her writing craft book, Your Book Starts Here, won the New Hampshire Literary Awards Reader's Choice Award. And I'm going to read her bio a little bit later, but we're going to do our intro first. We have a bumper crop of patrons that have joined. So let's go through the list. This is so exciting. Crop.
I love it.
Yeah. So first, thanks to Jo Bartlett for increasing their patronage tier. We so appreciate you. They've chosen the benefits tier that has retreat tickets and monthly coaching. So welcome. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. Also, welcome to new patrons, Nora, Coutis, Hanson, Michelle Coleman, and Mason Tufts. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
I'm super excited that you're joining us. And thank you to our existing patrons for believing in our work and here on the podcast, our work offline and here too. And if you want to check out the patronage, you can go to patreon.com/Valerie Isan. And also patreon.com/Strange Air Stories for short stories in the paranormal mystery genre, plus cool videos on what inspires him to write his stories. I just listened to your last video yesterday, I think. It was cool. While you recorded it in Alaska.
That room was so hot. Like I probably did 30 takes of it because I just kept like having to do like wipe my brows. I couldn't figure out how to turn the heat down in my Airbnb. So I put that in the review.
We do have a comment from a listener. It was regarding episode 128 on accountability buddies and masterminds. Joe says, great episode, exactly what I needed. So yay, that gives me the warm feelies. I'm glad that we can help out. Announcements. Early access to the early bird registration is happening now for patrons. So if you want early access to sold out tickets from last year, I said that totally wrong. Last year we sold out. So if you want a chance to get tickets that might sell out and you want early access to the early bird, then become a patron this month. Regular registration starts November 1st. I'm in a new anthology by Tsunami Press with my SAI contact. So you can pre-order that book directly from their store. They ship anywhere in the US. So that's tsunamibooks.org. And you just go to their shop. It should be, I think it's going to be this month. It's at the printers right now. So as soon as that process happens, then they'll ship it out. You can also pre-order Erick's new title, Season of the Shadow. That's up now on Amazon. I just saw an email from KDP that says you can do pre-orders for print books now.
I saw that too. I haven't.
So the pre-order is for the ebook then? Is that what you have set up?
Ebook only.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. When's the launch date? Do you have that set up yet?
I think it's November 16th. It's a Thursday in November. It is the 16th. Yeah.
Okay. December. And that's like, is that set in stone away. Or is that?
Yeah, that's set in stone.
It is set in stone. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. November 16th.
It's your mid Nanowrimo impulse buy. That's what I'm gonna market it. Like you're halfway through Nanowrimo. Read this book.
People need it. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. What a good idea.
Very cool. Oh, what am I this weekend? Today's Wednesday. 2 days from now. Wow. 2 days from now, I'm going to drive to Washington State for another conference, right on the Sound. is the name of the writing conference in Edmonds, Washington. So I'll be giving both of my talks on or master classes on turning your manuscript from boring to badass, and then the memoir one too, finding the core message of your memoir. So I'm doing both of those. And yeah, they gave me some updates on the numbers of people that have signed up for the class, and it is staggering, Eric. I'm really nervous about I've never spoken to that many people before in one room. So that's yeah. So
that's tough.
For context,
that's
Barry,
good.
I just spoke at a
want that.
conference last month, and I was doing a master class, and any master class I've taken is like the one Erick just gave. You know, there's like 6 people in the room, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you did 14, right? Yeah, like that's the biggest master class I've ever seen, you know, and I've taken many master classes, and that's about, you know, it's an intimate thing. There was like 45 people in this room, and it was like a college lectern, you know, with the stadium seating and everything. And I had the mic and the big, huge screen behind me. So that was really intimidating. So now this is like double that. So I'm kind of like, oh my God, a little bit nervous.
When I took I was in a similar situation, and one of the people in the class said, I took economics in here as a freshman. I was like, that is this room. It feels, you know, that sort of 101 classroom feel. I don't belong in front of a 101 classroom. It's just not what I was bargaining for.
But you did well.
I will say, yeah. I think, you know, and I've talked about it here.
And you're a good teacher, and you know your stuff.
Thank you.
So.
And I go at it with the whole, like, I'm not here to teach you what to do. I am here to help you make decisions. If you're going to self-publish a book, these are some of the decisions you're going to have to make. And here's why they're important decisions. Here's why. And here's what I did wrong. That's my whole angle. It's like, I made my own, I did everything that they tell you to not to do. I've done it. And so here's why it didn't work. And I think coming at anything from that angle where you're not promising the secret sauce, I think it just breaks down that like expert
barrier
shell, you know, the barrier. Right. So yeah, it really worked out. I had a lot of questions, and I actually had a guy who said he spent like almost $20,000 to self-publish a book and got 100 copies.
Oh,
and
man.
I felt so bad, because then he asked, well, how much do you spend when you self-publish a book? And I gave him the numbers of what we typically spend. And I felt so bad for that man. I really did. But that's the point, is to talk to people who are considering some of these services and need to reconsider them. Yeah.
The Alliance of Independent Authors has a writer beware kind of service,
Victoria.
I guess.
Yeah. Victoria, she has this wonderful website. Victoria runs that. Writers Beware.
Yeah.
Okay.
It used to be Predators and Editors or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It's very, very accurate.
Yeah.
If you're listeners, if you're in contact with a company that's saying that they'll publish your book, help you self-publish your book, you might want to just double check their name in the databases, just to make sure there's no red flags anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's up, Erick, in your author update? Your rewrite is done.
Rewrite is done in the hands of an editor. We'll take a moment and be quiet, and I just hope that person is okay with the book that she's got in her hands. We're gonna name her name. I haven't
even opened it, to be honest. Yes. I'm trying to get ready for the conference, so I will open it before I leave.
Yeah, like I've said, this month is kind of this next 2 months are really kind of like free write months for me. I have the next book drafted, and I'm not gonna do the whole like drop the curtain on one, raise the curtain on another. I don't want to do that feeling. I know I'll get to that, and I know it's story-wise what I want. So I'm not gonna get crazy about it. So yeah, I've just got a couple of months to work on some things. So yeah, I'm working on a short now, and another short later, and I'm gonna do NaNoWriMo for the first time in my life because
it's
I
fun.
figured
Yeah.
Have you?
Great. Oh yeah. My first novel that was published in 2009 was a NaNoWriMo book.
That's
So
awesome.
See? There you go.
Yeah.
Social proof right there.
It is.
Social
And
proof.
it's fun too, to just get that deadline and have a community that you connect with. And I loved it. I think the writing was terrible though. I mean, when it first came out of the chute.
That's the point. That's the point. I
was
did
awful, but-
NaNoWriMo for my first book too. I chunked it. I did not publish that book. It will never see the light of day. But the purpose of it was to prove to me that I did have time to write every day and I could finish a book.
And you can get it out there, and then you can do something with it if you want to. I've seen some terrible, my own included, but they can become books.
Yes.
Just not thinking that you can get through NaNoWriMo with a book, right? You don't have something at the end that's a book. You have
a book.
Shitty first draft.
But you have it.
Yeah,
It's a draft that you cannot
Mm-hmm.
publish yet.
Right. It's
until someone does a story diagnostic on it.
Well,
and
there
helps
you There you go.
I'm also doing NaNoWriMo this year, first time in years, because it just so happens that I'm lined up like you, Eric. Like I just happen to have a book idea that I haven't started yet, and November's right here. So I'm going to do Becca Syme's. I am doing Becca Syme's 30 for 30, her October challenge. So I'm spending 30 minutes a day, like researching, plotting, just sort of planning the book out. And that's what October is for me, is getting ready to start writing in November.
I love it.
Love it.
That's great. Have you guys ever done 1,000 Words of Summer? Jamie Attenberg's? That's another one to think about. She has these that run throughout the year. It's hashtag 1,000 Words of Summer. And then there's one that she does like in the fall, and people really rally about it. It's like thousands of people, but it's very good. Prompt a day and some kind of a email with famous writers' advice, somebody to encourage you. So,
all right.
Just a little plug for Jamie. Yeah.
Jamie is the
Jami Attenberg. Yeah. And she's on Substack, and I'm on Substack too. So I really love that community of newsletter people, but she does a wonderful newsletter.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you reading, Mary?
My just finished fave right now is Tom Lake by Ann Patchett.
Oh, okay.
I love that book. I love Patchett, but I didn't expect to like this one so much, to the point where I want to buy copies for friends. It's that
love
affair.
What did you like about it?
She's just so brilliant at characters, and she's got this very kind of low-key situation of these three daughters that come back to a cherry orchard farm that the family runs during the pandemic, and they have to stay there. And then the mother's past relationship with a famous actor kind of gets told through the book. So she's got a story within a story, which is very hard to do. But she does a great job with it. And I've heard that the audiobook is narrated by Meryl Streep, and people are nuts.
Oh my gosh.
About that.
Have me now.
I would just listen to that for Meryl Streep.
Yeah. Awesome.
But the book itself is really, really good. I thought I felt every time I picked it up, I felt kind of, I don't want to use a canned word, but kind of uplifted by the story. Like these people are good people, even though they have lots of problems. And it was very, I don't know, it was really engaging and inspiring by the end.
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
What are you reading, Eric?
Well, I brought, what I'm reading right now is the Kevin Eastman run of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle graphic novels.
Okay.
I read a lot of graphic novels. And I know nothing about this mythology of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I find them fascinating from like an outsider thing. And so there's this whole run of like definitive stories about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I got them all from the Oregon City Public Library, and I've been eating those up. And but on the trip, I read Beartown by Frederick Bachman.
Oh, that's good. I like that book. Did you like it? No.
I did.
Okay, I'll stop.
Well, wait.
No. This is why we like having conversations.
I like that.
Eric and I disagree all the time.
Okay.
I liked it a lot, but I was not prepared for this sort of hovering. It reminded me of The Lovely Bones, where it's just like we're looking down on this town and what's happening. And the mid book, it's just like some quirky town until the big incident happens, and then I knew there was something was going to happen, right? Because the first chapter promises like this is going to get grim, and you go through the whole first half of it like, hey, quirky hockey people getting up early to go to the rink. And when it happens in the middle, like I was prepared for something to happen, but I wasn't prepared for what that point of view was, how that was going to affect me. And I found like in the beginning, I was in sort of like one book, and in the end I was in another. And I liked the first book, and I really liked the second book. Because the second half of the book made me angry a lot. There was a lot to be mad about.
I think he did that on purpose, I would say.
Yeah.
I read the next one, which is Anxious People, and then there was a third one that was about the same Beartown people. Were the Winners, I think it's called. I couldn't finish it. I don't know. Up to here with hockey, right? There's a point where I like hockey, but not that much. So anyway,
it wasn't over. Like my mom got this for me. She works at a bookstore, so she found it on the shelf and she gave it to me. And she said she'd read it, but she said it was about hockey. It's clearly not about hockey. It's about something else. But yeah, I was a little overwhelmed with like how much detail about hockey I was getting. And I love the sport, but I was like, really? I got to talk about taping up skates again? It was a little odd in that way. But I think that's part of the...
Yeah, don't read the Winners then, because you'll just be swamped. I was drowning.
It's more so?
Oh, it's huge too. It's almost 600 pages, and it's about the two towns, Head and whatever the other one was.
Beartown.
Beartown, right? Head and Beartown, and their competition over who's going to have the rink. And boy, oh boy.
All right. I was just thinking, do I read the next one?
No, don't read that one. Anxious People is very good though.
But that's a standalone one. That's not
it is.
Yeah, is it in the same town though?
No, it takes place in the city, and it's about a real estate showing where someone decides to hold everyone hostage
in an elevator or something, right?
Yeah, it takes place. No, actually, they're in the apartment where the showing is happening, and they are all there being held hostage. I thought it was fascinating, the psychology of all those people. But
as someone who's selling a house or just sold a house, that whole idea of open houses is just rife with like possibility. So,
well, Eric, you should still read How to Sell a Haunted House. Not that your house is haunted, but is it on your shelf?
October. No, it's on my list. I don't have shelves. That's why I've blurred the background here. It's because I'm tired of like looking at my
stacks of books on the floor
in my room yet. Yeah, the stacks are growing, even though I'm not bringing books home. That's kind of weird. It's like reminding me.
Yeah, I have stacks of books over here outside of the camera view. So you just have normal stuff behind me. So it doesn't look like my apartment or my office is in shambles, but it is because we just installed new floors, Mary. So I had to basically pack up everything. And so we're still unpacking from having the floors done.
It's a big deal.
It was, yeah. So I finally finished the Essex Serpent, and I am in the middle, or not the middle. I just started. I'm probably chapter 5 or 6 of Slammerkin by Emma Donoghue. So that's the research book. I have 2 other research books I want to read this month about like the time period of the historical novel that I'm going to start writing next month. So,
do you like Slammerkin? Do you like it?
I mean, so far it feels like it's still just sort of setting the stage. It's kind of at the beginning. And the only other Emma Donoghue book I read was Room.
I love Room. Wow, what a powerful book.
Yeah.
Is that the book that the movie's based on?
Yeah.
Theoretically. I didn't see the movie, so
I saw the movie. I mean, I read the book and then I saw the movie. I watched the movie with my husband, and he had a really hard time watching the movie. It was really, grim for him, and was not
terrifying.
He was like, it was really hard for him to get through the whole thing. We had to take a few breaks, and I was like, well, don't read the book then, because there's a lot more in the book than they're putting on the screen.
It's haunting.
It just felt so real. It like it wasn't fiction.
It's from the young child's point of view, which is so hard to do. I know a handful of books, very, very few books that can pull that off. She did a brilliant job. She
I can
really
imagine.
did. Yeah. Wow.
All right. Well, I'm going to read Mary's bio now and we'll get to talking.
Do we have a drum roll sound effect right now? Can we do the drum roll?
I don't know. Did that come through?
Do you know how to do
that? All right. Mary Carroll Moore is a best-selling and award-winning author of 14 books in 3 genres, including the PEN/Faulkner and Lambda Literary Awards, nominated young adult novel Qualities of Light, the prequel to A Woman's Guide to Search and Rescue, which you just put out, right? That's your latest book?
Actually, it's like 2 weeks from pub. There it is.
Oh, wow.
Yay!
Wow.
She received her MFA from Goddard College and has taught throughout the U.S. and abroad at various writing schools and universities since 1998. Her writing craft book, Your Book Starts Here, won the New Hampshire Literary Awards Reader's Choice Award. Before moving into fiction, she worked as a chef, a cooking school owner, a cookbook author, and a syndicated columnist for the Los Angeles Times. Her first cookbook won a Julia Child IACP award. Over 200 of her essays, stories, and articles have appeared in magazines and literary journals. She lives in New Hampshire with her family. Welcome, Mary.
Wow. Thank you. That's exhausting, isn't it?
Well, it's a nice CV. Like, that's pretty awesome.
Whoa.
I want to talk food.
Oh yeah, everybody does. Every podcast I'm on, people go into the food.
Right.
I wanted to go
Let's
into
be different then.
I wanted to go into the book that your book starts here, your writing craft book.
Yeah, sure.
What did you what made you want to write a nonfiction book about writing?
Well, I'd started teaching writing classes in 2000 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I survived it and I did well. So I wanted to do some kind of writing through healing class. And I found a school in the Midwest in Minnesota, the Loft Literary Center. And I offered a benefit there for women who are going through cancer. And it was such an amazing experience for me. And the Loft asked me to continue to teach there. So I ended up 2 decades later having taught, I don't know, hundreds of classes for them, and both online and in person. And when I moved back east, I started teaching in New York, and the students were saying, you got all this material, why don't you put it into a book? Especially because I teach storyboarding, the filmmaker's tool, on how you use that for novels and nonfiction books. So I ended up putting together all of my notes and handing them to an editor who used to work with Reader's Digest, who was a friend. And she said she would be willing to cobble it together into a book for me. Nice. And it was hard, because if you've ever taken your spoken or taught material and tried to make it into a standalone book, it's not like, apples to apples. So we had to redo the lessons and make sure that there was enough explanation that I would normally give in person. And she ended up creating the draft with me, and then we edited it, and it's done very well. It's still in print 12 years later, doing really well. So wow. I'm happy about it. I wanted to get it out there,
And is that about the storyboarding for novelists?
Yes. Yeah, it's the whole idea that you take actually, I got this idea from Kenneth Atchity, who teaches at UCLA, but he said that a lot of writers who are successful write in snippets. He calls them islands. And if you form continents too soon from your islands, you're probably going to lose some of the random right brain stuff, the intuitive stuff. So he recommends you work with islands for about 30,000 words. And then at that point, you need to find some structure to work with. So that's where storyboarding comes in. And I use the W format, which is Joseph Campbell's diagram. And we take all the islands, we put them on little sticky notes, and then we actually create a W of the flow of the book. And then from there, the next version of the draft can be made. But now you have a map, which is, as you guys know from writing books, that's the hardest thing for most writers, is to get lost in the middle of all those words and not know where they're going. And so there's lots and lots of systems out there to help. But I've always loved the W and taught it for years now.
I feel like the opposite of that. I think I meet a lot of these authors that they plot the book to death.
Yeah.
And there's none of that. Like, you get to this place where there's no spontaneity, there's no joy, there's no discovery in that. And so I've always I've tried to conceive of this idea where you know where the story's going, but you don't know every turn on the road. You're just you're kind of putting the tent. I think of them as tent poles. Like, you're kind of putting the tent pole up and then you're figuring out what's underneath it. I like the idea of islands, though.
I think the idea that if you're not surprised, the reader won't be either. And so I feel kind of like I have to be in the discovery mode for at least for the early drafts. And if I got it all planned out, at least I'm part pantser, part plotter, but I really can't discount that intuitive, vomit onto the page kind of stage that you do in the beginning to get out as many ideas. That's why NaNoWriMo works for so many people, I think. You get to get it out there. And then if they're smart, they'll realize it's not really a book yet. They have to structure it now. So the structure thing is the place that I came in with my book, because so many of my students they had no idea how to structure stuff, or they did it, like you said, Erick, too much.
Yeah. I love the title. I have a writers group, and one of the members of my writers group, Gary, one of his classic comments is your chapter starts here. Your chapter starts here. And that tends to be, for me, like my instinct is to start writing the chapter way back from the actual beginning. And so I go back and look at my notes from writers group. It's always like, this is the opening. Whereas I had, 1,000 words of material up to that. So where does that title come when you say your book starts here? Like, what is that? Is that implying that?
Yeah, it was more that one of my students said, well, the buck stops here. She was kind of trying to make a play off of that. But for me, it's like my books tend to be chapter 5. That's where I start. So I have to write 4 chapters of warm up. And I learned that I don't start until chapter 5, of course, by submitting it and getting editor comments or agent comments. But the main thing I think the storyboard can help people with is to actually find out how much warm up you do. Some people actually have like a third of the book is warm up, and they can start, like you said, Erick, right at the end of that third, jump right into the story, and then the reader's right there with you. So it's a lot more engaging. Yeah. Yeah, I love the title too.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to do titles. I'm really terrible at titles. So I've had my titles changed by publishers, and more often than I can tell you. Almost all of my titles have been changed. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like titles either I don't know if we've even talked about it. I feel like I either get the title right away, and that's one, or I have no idea what the title is until I'm done. So it's one of those two things for me.
Yeah. I'm really bad at it, but my last book, my agent said, you have to go to the internet and you have to find 15 titles that you love and tell me why, and then come up with 15 of your own, because your titles are really bad. So I thought, so I think I'm great at the interior and terrible at the exterior. So when I get a good title, and I'm so happy you like your book starts here, because that was one I worked really hard on.
I love it.
Yeah. I always get mine after writing it. I have a name, a working title to call it, but then I don't figure out what it is until the end. And usually my titles, all of them, with the exception of one, are from some text in the book itself. Just a little snippet of something that just kind of resonates with me and is thematically representative. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Representative of theme.
I think that's so my current novel is called A Woman's Guide to Search and Rescue. And I didn't really realize this, but one of the trade reviewers said, this is a book about people rescuing themselves. It's about families that are search and rescuing themselves, as well as it's a book outwardly about search and rescue pilots. But I found that's fascinating. So sometimes the title that I end up with, I don't really know the meaning of it until somebody else out there gives me feedback. Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And I guess that is the only reason why people should read their reviews, maybe. Maybe not the only reason, but I know that some
There's
people
a
have
reason.
what's that?
I think there's a reason to read your reviews. I think
There's
I read
reasons
everyone.
too, but some people have a hard time with it and know that it's triggering, and so they don't on purpose, which I think is a good tactic for them. I think that the benefit of reading your reviews would be, to find that marketing copy or, find that through line that maybe you hadn't identified yet. And if that's what people like in your book, then you can use that in your marketing copy to, get more people to come in and highlight, those pieces that other people had also liked. That makes sense to me.
That's very important. I found that, so as this book came out in pre-orders, I think it was like 3 months ago, there were people reading it as advanced copies, and they were posting on Goodreads. So I have a number of reviews on Goodreads, and they were saying this is a page turner. I couldn't put it down. I read it, nonstop. I had to do other things, but I really wanted to read the book. This didn't occur to me. I didn't write it as a page turner. So then I could go in and find those reviews. And a friend of mine who's a much more experienced author said, go in and find the words that are used over and over again in your reviews. And that's going to be your keywords for your marketing. So then you can actually go into Amazon in your Authors Central and plug in those keywords in your description if you want. I didn't know this stuff. So it's so cool to find out why reviews are very important to me, because I get to hear what people see in the book, what they like, what they're attracted to.
And then
I think I think also if you, go.
You guys are good.
There's also the reason for, the more reviews you have, that puts you in the lineup for getting, like featured deals and on other, sometimes you can't buy ads unless, you have a certain amount of reviews or something like that. So it definitely helps people find your book online. The more reviews
I think so
you have.
too. Yeah, I value them, and I value trade reviews. I was very not very educated in my early books about trade reviews. The publisher would sometimes get them, but I didn't really know what the importance of them was. And so this time around, I really wanted to get Coutis and those other big guys. And actually, when I first got my first review, Coutis was the first one for this book, the Woman's Guide to Search and Rescue. I was blown away because they saw things in it that I didn't see, and they really liked it. So it was astonishing to me that I would get this outward validation, because when you're writing, you love your work and all that, but sometimes you can't really see it from the professional level. An agent can tell you and a publisher can tell you, but this was a big deal. So I'm going to put in another plug for reviews for authors. Trade reviews, go for it.
I have mixed feelings about trade reviews.
Do
I don't
you?
know. Well, I don't like the idea of paying for a review. And I don't, I'm happy to be like, convince me, Mary. Why? So far what you've been saying has been convincing, but I still have I don't know, kind of a little block about paying for a review.
Yeah. Well, I've never spent money on promotion before for any of my books. Either I got that from the publisher, or if I published myself, it was something that I just assumed that everybody would, I'll do my email to my friends and everything like that. But this book, I decided I would put a budget together and I would spend some money on just a little bit of serious promotion. And then I started reading, again on Substack, because I'm on that and I have my newsletter there. So I get a lot of feedback from people about self-promotion and how it's hard today not to self-promote. It's pretty much
it's hard not to self-promote.
Yeah, it's hard to get away with a book being successful without the author promoting it.
Yes.
And a great example was a friend of mine, a student actually, who got a Big 5 contract. And she had a publicist, and she ended up hiring a publicist in addition. And she said that the one that she hired was the one that really got her up there with all the, interviews and magazines and everything like that, that that she can't really tell, who did what, but she's very convinced that the one she hired was the better deal for her. And so I don't know. I think that it's still, I don't know, silly is a strong word, but it's very hard to get ahead with a book without some investment in it these days.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally think it's a pay to play. I just,
you just don't know the reviews.
Well, years and years ago, there was a big scandal about people paying Amazon reviewers, like paying $5 for someone to go in and put a fake review up that they hadn't even read the book. And so I guess I have that kind of like knee-jerk reaction to, I would never pay for reviews. And then, but does that include trade reviews? Like, it's just something that I have to
I think that was a scandal, and it still is a big deal. I think Amazon and BookBub and Goodreads are all very aware of, what your rating is, and if it looks funny to their algorithm, all that thing. So the industry is very serious about that right now, at least from what I've heard.
But Kirkus review has always been well thought of, and they're the oldest
and biggest. They put me in their magazine. So after I had gotten my review, I got an email from them saying, you've been selected for our August issue. So in there is, a certain number of reviews of all the reviews they've done. And they had me down for a half a page. And so that went to 15,000 librarians and bookstore owners. And I thought, my book started going into bestseller status on Amazon at that point in pre-orders. I can't help but put the dots together a little bit, that there's something about that review and about what was happening with I did a blogger tour, Instagram blogger tour for 2 days, and they posted also about my cover reveal. So I did all these things I've never done before, and that's when everything shot up on Amazon. So I don't know. It is awesome, and it's so unexpected. I couldn't believe it. But
so you did I'm taking this down. I'm taking notes down. Okay. So for your launch, you did a Kirkus review.
I did a Kirkus, an independent book review, and a couple of others, book list and Publishers Weekly, those guys. So submit to all of those people. That's what I did.
Publishers, independent book review, Publishers Weekly, and what was the fourth one?
Book list.
Book list
is the other. Those are the 4 biggies, and then
and then you did an Instagram blogger tour.
Yeah, there's people that do. I know this is weird. There's people that do blog tours. So you can either pitch to bloggers yourself if you want. Again, something I knew nothing about, but a friend, actually a former student, I get most of my ideas from them. She had a historical novel that had hit #1 on Amazon for many, many months, and she'd done really well with it. And I said, how did you do it? And she said, well, one of the main things I did was I found someone that does bookstagrammer tours. And they have like a stable of Instagrammers that they use that are, some of them have 54,000 followers, right? So the metrics are pretty awesome. And then they will post your cover and a little description, and then their readers will pre-order. And my numbers went through the ceiling that day. So I thought, okay, I'm learning some stuff. The trade reviews matter, and this bookstagrammer thing matters. I mean, wow, this is all new to me.
It seems like, how would you get in the door for the bookstagrammer?
Oh, you can just Google bookstagrammer tour guide or tours. There are tons of people that do them, and they're just, they're not that expensive, a couple $100 sometimes. And then they have a stable of people that they feed them the new books, so that's why the bookstagrammers like these tours, because they get all these new books.
Okay.
And then you send them your ebook ahead of time, which is a fine thing too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm learning so much. I feel like I want to write a book about book launches now, because I've just learned so much about how to do it.
How is it that because this is, you've authored 14 books. So is this the first one that you've done your own promotion on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The last one, Qualities of Light, it was published by a small press in Florida, and they didn't do anything. So I decided I would do as much as I could, but my background, I was a food journalist, so I knew about radio, TV, and newspapers. And when it was published in 2009, that was a great marketing angle. So I got on NPR, I got in the New York Times.
Wow.
And I did really good on the basic level. But now in 2023, it's all online. Everything is totally different. It's podcasts like you guys are doing, and it's online social media, and it's a lot of things that I didn't know much about. So I had to really relearn it. And I took a study course. I just wanted to immerse myself in how's this done, because I love this book. It's the best one I've ever done, and I really wanted to give it everything I could. So I set aside a little budget, and I said, okay, I'm going to dedicate my time to learning how to do this in 2023, which is so different than 2009. So my journalism background didn't come in handy at all. I mean, I pitched to newspapers, but it was like that wasn't where it was at compared to the bookstagrammers.
Yeah, I mean, we go to that whole idea of what you have to go where your readers are, and a majority of our readers are not picking up the daily newspaper. Right. And I mean, I think what you were saying about self-promotion, just kind of going back to where this thread started, is, like it's just it's kind of an accepted part of our culture anymore that people are, if you've done something, you're going to promote it. And I think we have to kind of get away from the sort of senseless the idea that like self-promotion is senseless. And I think there's just smart self-promotion that people want to hear. If you're writing a book, people want to hear that. Do they want to hear what you had for lunch necessarily? Maybe not, if that's your thing. But I just think that there's this, I had to have this conversation multiple times this weekend about promote what makes sense for you, about you. And it won't feel forced. If you're talking about your book, it's going to feel great. And especially since you're proud of it. So can you talk a little bit about just like the seed of where this book came from? Because when I hear something like search and rescue, I have a brother-in-law who's in that world, and I find it fascinating. Well, how did you get there?
Well, my mom was a pilot. She got her commercial license in her 20s at a time where there were very few women pilots, and she became a ferry pilot in the Women's Air Force Service Pilots in World War II. And so I grew up with this legacy of this mother who, we never talk about it, but she had ferried B-29 four-engine planes all over the U.S. And, for 2 years, she was basically serving in the military, although unrecognized. And I was fascinated with flying from that early age. She was picked out of some 20,000 women that applied, and there were only 1,000 accepted. And so she did this for 2 years. So I grew up with this legacy, this mother who was this amazing person that, and then she went back, she had 4 kids and went back to work and as a secretary. So it's like, how did she reconcile that incredible experience with being a pilot in a time when women didn't do that kind of thing, and then going back to being a 50s housewife with 4 kids and a full-time job? So throughout my childhood, I bugged her about like, tell me some flying stories. And she said, well, I'll teach you how to fly. But she never did, of course. So one of the reasons I wanted to write this book was about discovering what women pilots are about. So 2 of the characters are women pilots. One is search and rescue, and the other is actually a pilot, stunt pilot. And I wanted to find out like what makes people, you were talking about Alaska being someplace that people run to. Well, I have a feeling like with my mom's history, that pilots are, they want to take to the air. They need freedom. They need space. They need to get away. And my mom was kind of like that. So I wrote it to understand her, but also because of my fascination with flying. And then I took my first flying lesson last month, which I wanted to do all my life, and I am in my late years with this book coming out and thinking, this is something I have to do. So I got myself into a little Cessna 152 and took to the air. And the instructor said, okay, you sit here, you sit in the pilot seat. And so I'm up there over Lowell, Mass, right? With looking down from this pilot seat and thinking, my mom did this, So the whole book was really about the strength and the beauty of these 2 main characters who did something I never got a chance to do. So that's where it came from.
I love it.
What's the time frame of this book?
It's now. It's in the 2000s. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I read that your mom was that your mom inspired this story, are there any, I mean, did you think about, I was gonna say, are there any elements of memoir in it? Like, are there any, did you think about maybe writing a memoir first about it, or?
No, I didn't really, because I don't know enough about her. See, she was very, very private, and we have her books, her albums, you know, scrapbooks, and we have her flying log, and we have pictures of her, and the Life magazine back then did a newspaper article on them.
Oh, wow.
And there was a PBS, there's a PBS documentary, and, you know, she was interviewed by the Library of Congress before she died. And, you know, all these things that were really important, but I never knew her as a pilot. I didn't know what it was like. So I wanted to, you know, kind of explore that. And I do have some of myself in the book, of course. One of the characters who's one of the main characters who's the stunt pilot, she's very much of a rebel, and she just likes to like, get out of here. Let's just get out of here. And I'm that way too. Sometimes I have to escape, and that's part of my nature. And then the other main character, who is a search and rescue pilot, you'll know this from your understanding of that field, Erick, but she's very meticulous and very detailed oriented and very kind of precise. So I wanted to combine these two elements of myself and these two characters, the precision and the methodical nature, and then the let's blow this pop stand kind of place, you know. So I did, and I got these two opposite, they're strange sisters that are forced back together when one of them is framed for a murder. And so she has to run, and she hides with the only person that she actually doesn't know, which is her strange sister in this remote town up in the upstate New York area.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it was really fun. And it was fun. Boy, what was great was to research how to crash a plane without killing anybody. So I had a cohort of pilots.
Your Google search has been flagged.
I know. I had to get real people, because I had a flight instructor in my class, and I said, Sylvia, would you be able to help me with this scenario? And she got her other flying instructors together, and they brainstormed for a weekend. And they came up with a scenario for me, and I wrote it all up into a scene. And then I gave it back to her, and I said, please check this. Yeah. Because I don't know enough. And she checked it, and she said it's quite legit. Believable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So this book it's in pre-order status right now?
Yeah. Until the 24th.
October 24th.
It's an ebook and audiobook. The narrator is phenomenal. I really recommend it. So the audiobook's on sale right now at all the places you can get audiobooks, and the ebook and the print book also. So until the 24th. Okay. And then they'll be, you know, actually live.
Okay, cool. And then I had a question about the prequel. You wrote the prequel first. Did you know you were writing a prequel when you were writing it? Oh, no. That's interesting.
I know. And I guess, you know, you've probably had this experience, and some of your listeners too, that the characters can't leave you. You know, you write the story and you just can't stop thinking about these people, and you imagine, well, what would happen 4 years later, or 5 years later? So that's how the second book came about. It's been fun. Now I'm ready to say goodbye to them, though.
Right. I just think it's interesting that, and I find it kind of heartwarming that I think sometimes these historical realities become kind of curiosities. You know, this idea that women worked in industry during World War II, and then they went back to work, or like how our culture, like there's these windows to what, like, periods of time. And I think sometimes they get treated like curiosities, I guess, like, oh, look at this little quaint thing. So I think I find it interesting. You're, you know, exploring it in some depth and like really looking at something that, I don't know, it was just like probably illuminated a lot of what the times were like, you know, the need for women to be pilots and you know, to start breaking those barriers down. So
it's amazing. The men, you know, not to diss anybody, but the men wouldn't get in the B-29s. They wouldn't fly them. They felt they were unsafe, these huge 4-engine planes. So the commander sent the women up to demonstrate the planes so the men would feel safe enough to fly them. And can you imagine my mom would tell us stories about male co-pilots in the, you know, she'd have to be the main pilot, and then her co-pilot would be a man, and he would criticize her the whole time they were flying. And, you know, she said it was very hard There was so much prejudice against women being pilots. So that's, of course, something else I'm fascinated about, how women are strong and can do things like that and are often underestimated. So
still.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's not a curiosity. I guess that's where I was going with that, is this idea that that's not just like that's a reflective of something larger, of the of not like the cultural patterns and things. And so I think getting in there and exploring it. And I liked what you like. As soon as you said like being framed and like this estranged sisters thing, I immediately got in there. I was like, it was
good.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to create a thriller that was a literary thriller. I wanted to create a thriller plot that had character development. So it's classified now. The genre is literary thriller, which I didn't even know existed before I wrote this book. But that's how the trade reviewers are saying, "Oh, this is a literary thriller." So
that's
anyway,
exciting. I'm definitely pre-ordering this. This sounds really fascinating.
Oh, thank you. I'm really thrilled to talk with you guys. This has been such a great conversation about writing.
Yeah, I love it.
Talking to writers like this.
I know, talking shop is awesome. That's why I like the podcast, because a lot of people don't understand the writer life and you know what weirdness we go through, like trying to figure out how to crash a plane, like
I know. I mean, really.
And try to figure out how to do it legit and believably. And
I know. And the person can walk away, right? So
and I think there's something to be said just for, you know, talking about writing like frees you from the idea that there's one way to do it. And I just think there's a big trend in our world where people are, you know, here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. Here's the way. And even when we're talking about marketing, like something works, something that will work for you will not work, maybe won't work for me. And like three of us could sit here with 3 best-selling books and took 3 different paths to get there. And I think people need to hear that to understand that, you're free to do it how you want to do it.
And it's a lot of experimentation, at least for me. I follow people's ideas, but I'm really kind of a rebel in that way too. I don't believe automatically that it's going to work for me until I test it out. So, but there's a wealth of information out there, and you guys are providing quite a bit here.
Well, we
thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you want to talk? I'm looking at your list of expert topics over here, and you've got a number of them, and they all sound fascinating. We could have podcast episodes on every single one of them, but we don't have time for that today. But is there anything else that you want to talk about, specifically maybe about the
food.
book, the food? Food. He wants to get to the food. I was trying to steer away because you sounded like you were bored.
I was kidding. I could talk about food all the time. As a writer, that's my like immediate gratification outlet, right? I can write the same thing for months and months and not see it, but I can go downstairs with, ingredients and make a meal, and it either works or it doesn't. So that's for me is like the outlet of
That's so interesting, because I have another writer friend that does the same thing. I didn't know that about you, Eric. So my writer friend Anthony Sinclair, he writes travel fantasy. He said he heard someone say once that people that are writers, like real cerebral kind of artists, need something else to do creatively with their hands to balance out the, in your head too much and then in your body. And so he chose cooking. So he was a very big foodie, he's traveling the world now. So he's eating all the food maybe instead of making the food.
That's great.
But
I love cooking.
Yeah, I like knitting. That's what I do with my hands. And also my planner. I kind of scrapbook a little bit in my planner.
Mary, she's going to talk about her planner now.
No, stickers and markers but I find it soothing and centering. And so that's kind of what I do. What do you do? Do you have a creative outlet that's not writing?
Oh, I thought you were talking to Eric. I was waiting to hear what he said.
Oh, no.
I have cooking. I do cook still. And I also have gardening. I'm a nutso gardener, really. Fruit trees and everything, the whole shebang. So our little plot here in New Hampshire on the side of a mountain is all growing stuff.
What's your go-to meal? Like if you're
cooking
for you.
See?
Yeah. Oh yeah. What is your go-to? Like you're
We're not
cooking
gonna
for
escape
you.
It.
Comfort food. What's your go-to meal?
Let's see, what do I love to make? I love curries. So I love the whole Indian meal kind of thing. I love Thai food. I taught Thai food when back in the days when I was a food journalist. I had a lot of interest in Thai cooking and the ingredients for that, the spices and stuff. What else? Well, I lived in France, so I was traditionally trained in French cooking. But I think my go-to would be something Southeast Asian, just because of the flavors are just phenomenal.
YouTube listeners, Erick is salivating right now and he's rubbing his hands together thinking about
well it's just very much like I cook on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. My wife works late, so I always cook some, so she has dinner when she comes home, and there's a certain, like, if it's anything in those cuisines, she's the happiest. I make Italian food a lot, so she gets like, it's pasta, but if it's a curry or like it's Thai food, she's comes to life.
Well, it's something like, I don't know, I find that it's really relaxing for my brain, because I get so involved in the characters and the plot, and then my brain is like on fire, right, with all these people in it, and then I need to do something physical to process them. And so sometimes taking walks or going outside and digging or making food, it allows me to process, okay, that character needs to do this, or what is the real motivation behind this person's actions. So that's the reason I think it's balancing. I remember Julia Cameron did a book about walking, how writers should walk
in this world. Yeah.
And I thought, she's really got something there, because this is important for us cerebral, imaginative people.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us today, Mary. It was really fun to hear. I can't wait to read this book now. I'm really excited about it.
Hold it up again. Everybody can see it. Yay!
A Woman's Guide to Search and Rescue.
Search and Rescue. Yeah.
And so it's up for pre-order and
everywhere
for audiobook, ebook, and print. And where can people find you online if they want to like check you out?
My website, marycarrollmore.com, and 2 R's, 2 L's, 2 O's. So you can
Mary Carroll Moore.
I love it.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, Mary.
Thank you. You guys are great. I enjoyed it a lot.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.